Hello and welcome back to my office. So for all you Templars out there, a quick chat about what I've been doing and how the work's going. Well, the last 2 weeks have been strange. I was suddenly contacted by Smithsonian Journeys 3 weeks ago, and apparently they do regular organised trips all over the world. I don't know, this is an area that is outside my sphere of competence, let us say. But one of the trips they do is a classical murder mystery tour of England. And basically what it means is they have a tour that lands in London, drives down to Torquay, where they learn all about Agatha Christie and quite a few of her books, and then they wander from there up past Exeter towards the Wye Valley, where they learn about other authors, up into the Cotswolds, where they talk about authors such as Dick Francis and his son Felix Francis, and then from there into Oxford, P.D. James, Dorothy L. Sayers, then down to London, and basically they cover a huge number of Golden Age and more recent crime writers on this big tour. And the trouble is that they have always an expert on the coaches, so they have someone who can talk about what it is they're seeing, talk about the countryside or whatever it might be. But this year, 3 weeks before or 2 weeks before the trip, the expert went sick and they couldn't think who else to contact. So luckily for me, what Smithsonian did was contact the Crime Writers Association, and one of the directors there knew that I lived in Devon, knew that the tour was starting in Torquay, and so she said, "Mike, do you want to get in touch and see what it's all about?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd be interested." So I gave him a call. As a result, I became the resident expert. And it's very good, because usually the resident expert on these tours is someone who's extremely knowledgeable about specifics and is a blue badge tour guide, so they can talk about many things like how thatching is done, whatever it might be. But this, I think, was the first time they actually had a full-time crime writer getting involved in the trip. So I was able to talk about my friends who were crime writers like Colin Dexter, Bernard Knight, Susanna Gregory. I was able to talk about the way that Agatha Christie used to write, because I had quite a lot of experience of investigating her notebooks and things. I was able to talk about the history of the area. So, for example, I took them up onto Dartmoor so that they could see where the Hound of the Baskervilles was written, but I was able to add a bit there because I could take them over the top of Hound Tor to the far side, where there's a medieval village that had to be evacuated in about 1318 because of the Great European Famine, which obviously ties in with a lot of my books. So I was able to add something there. And I think it went well. But it was one hell of a nerve-wracking experience going down to start off, because I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know what sort of people would be there. I didn't know the tour manager. I didn't know anything really, apart from what I knew about my subject. But I could not have had a more welcoming, appreciative group. It was an absolute delight spending a week with them. They were mostly from America, but a happy trio came from Australia as well, which rounded things off nicely. And we had a great time. I hope they did. Anyway, I haven't seen any reports that say that anyone did or didn't, to be honest. I just hope they enjoyed it. I certainly did. It was great to get away for a week. And now, of course, that means that I've been delayed slightly with the next project, which is book 5 in the Jack Blackjack Bloody Mary series. And that's why my desk is covered in books about Bloody Mary and Elizabeth, and books on the royal palaces of that time. This is great, actually. I found this. It cost me nothing, It was free of charge at the local dump. When you go to your local dump, always have a look inside and see if they've got any books they don't want to keep. Because sometimes you get little prizes like that. But the main thing right now is I'm getting ready to write 70,000 words for the 5th in the Bloody Mary series. It's not a lot of time to write a book. However, I'm hoping I can average 5,000 to 7,000 words a day. If I can do that, then I should have the book finished before the end of November, which is the hope and aspiration, because that's when the deadline is. So right now I'm doing a fair amount of work. If you look at the Vintners section on Patreon this month, you'll see that I've done a certain amount of explanation about how I outline and plan my next book. Hopefully it's not giving too much away. I don't think it is, because I'm going to be very careful to make sure I don't, but at least it gives you a certain feel for what I'm trying to achieve. Apart from that, all of last month was spent scurrying around finishing off the edit of One Last Dance Before I Die, and then trying to find a home for the 17 Templar series books that aren't with a publisher yet, the 3 books of the Vintner trilogy, and the first book of the Crusades series, Pilgrim's War. I've not had much joy. I have found a home for the Vintner trilogy and Pilgrim's War. I think that the 17 books, which is the first 13 books from Last Templar through to Devil's Acolyte, and then the last books, which are Oath, King's Gold, City of Fiends and Templar's Acre, should soon be finding a home. But it's certainly been a nerve-wracking period, and it's been very painful knowing that all that work, all those years of work, are earning no money at all just because my publisher decided they didn't want them anymore. Hey-ho, such is life. But hopefully they'll all be available for sale very, very soon indeed. I would just say that I have several other books which I've been planning to edit and to get into a format that's suitable for publication as soon as possible. But right now I'm going to hold back on them. I'm going to basically decide whether I'm going to put them out on Amazon myself, whether I might push them through an ebook publisher, and whether I might do something totally different. But what I'm going to do in the meantime is I've got an idea for a series of books based on the police in Plymouth, down here in Devon, which I think are going to be fairly gritty, but still functioning puzzles. Why Plymouth? Well, it's on the coast, it's a big city, it's got all the problems that you'd expect of a big city. It's got drugs, it's got gang violence, it's got very, very wealthy areas, it's got hideously poor areas. It's right close to the country, so it's got the possibility of using Dartmoor and other places as locations for the stories, but of course it's also got the seaside, so there's the potential for smuggling of all types, whether it's firearms, whether it's drugs, whether it's people. So it gives me a nice rounded area in which to explore certain policing issues of today. I think that could be quite good fun. But I do need to get back into creation mode rather than editing. I've spent really most of the last 18 months just editing, and I've got to get away from that and start writing new books again, because it's the writing the new books that I find excites me and interests me. I've got to admit, it's also writing new books that means I wake up in the morning and stay awake late at night. When I'm not actually creating, I find I just get really exhausted the whole time. Much more fun to be writing and getting creative. And I think that's about all for now. I see I've been talking for 10 minutes or so. So thanks a lot for your continued support on Patreon. I really appreciate it. Thanks very much for keeping me motivated, because you are, believe it or not. And I look forward to speaking to you at the end of this month with news of the book being done and anything else that might be coming up in December. Thanks a lot for listening and watching, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye.